Let's bring in now our national trial attorney guest who is standing by. Michael Jaafar is with us. Michael, Alex paints a picture of what it's like inside of that courtroom and just the demeanor of this witness on the stand. I mean, her head down, you're only seeing her hair part. I'm wondering if that is purposeful to further shroud her identity. I understand even how she comes into the courtroom may be shrouded so that people can't get a photograph of who she is. But does that prejudice the defendant at all? You've got someone who is clearly scared to the point they don't even want their name out.
Absolutely, completely prejudices him, and what it shows the jury is that it lends credence to her allegation that she suffers from PTSD. She avoided him and his team, and she was abused. It does lend credence to that. At the end of the day, what the government's trying to do, and why this witness is important, what the government is trying to do with this witness is very, very difficult. They've never done this before. I tried to find a precedent for it. I couldn't find it. What they're trying to do is basically show that Sean Diddy Combs was like a mob boss, but instead of, bribing, dumpster companies and bribing unions, he's actually coercing people into sexual acts. This has never been done before, because at the end of the day, if the jury finds at the end of this trial that he was gross, he was a monster, he was a criminal, he committed all these acts, and some of them were criminal, but this was not part of his business, then the racketeering goes out the window. That's why this witness, this Mia, is so important. That's why her demeanor is so important, because her demeanor will show that she was the linchpin to connect his business and his grotesque personal fetish life. Right? That's why she's important, and that's why her demeanor is so important, because it'll lend credence to that. Will it work? I don't know. What I've seen, Julia, is that when because juries are human beings. They're not AI robots. They're not going to be able to detach the human element of a witness and what a witness has gone through from the actual elements on a piece of paper that they will be given in instructions at the end of the case when they're trying to decide the case. They can't divorce those two, right? So if the government can paint Sean Combs as this supervillain who has done these, like 1% of what they have pretty much proven he's done, not a single human being does, right? And I don't want to pass judgment on his life, but at the end of the day, it's pretty dramatic. So this Mia is going to lend credence to all of that, and she's going to help the government paint him as a supervillain. And when the jury goes into the room, they're going to give reasonable inferences in favor of the government. So that's why I think this witness and her demeanor is so important to the federal government.
And you said the word supervillain. That's the exact word that witness Kid Cudi used on the stand when talking about his interaction with Sean Diddy Combs. And I agree with you. It's rare with the way that they are prosecuting this case. But in 2021, I sat through the R. Kelly trial, and it's very similar to how they carried out that prosecution. So we will see what this jury does. We know a jury convicted R. Kelly of very similar charges. We'll have more testimony after a quick break. Matthew DeSogra still on the stand under cross. A bit of a sidebar there. Let's bring in national trial attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, what do you think about how this first witness is going so far? I haven't gotten your take yet on the defense case, the state resting yesterday. I mean, we're at a pivotal moment in this trial.
Wow, that's all. I'm so happy you asked me in that way. So first of all, I think that the defense now are going to have to react to a completely very muscular prosecution case. They rested their case. I always have this saying. I didn't create this saying. I'm not smart enough to create this saying, but I love this saying: addition by subtraction. That's how the state rested their case. Well, I think half the witnesses in the prior case, right? Much better case, much more muscular case. So right now, the defense is off to the start I would have expected them to start off, which is facts, right? I hope that the defense focuses on facts and not, innuendo and conspiracy theory. So far, they're doing a good job. I think this witness, though, is not going to come anywhere close to the aperture witnesses and the accident reconstruction witnesses in terms of the timeline. I think that the state has basically locked down the timeline, in my opinion. I think that the jury will make a reasonable inference that the timeline that the state posited are correct. Right now, this the defense expert obviously is trying to undo the timeline and create more confusion, which is what you would want to do if you're the defense. But at the end of the day, I think he's off to the start I would have expected, but he is way undermatched with the experts that the state had. I mean, $350,000, I think, was the fee just for the accident reconstruction experts, right? I promise you, Karen Read did not have that kind of, war chest to pay their experts or have their experts do demonstrations like the state did. The state really just came to war in this case, and they just want to put this thing to bed. They put their best foot forward. They put such a great case together, Julia, that in my opinion, if they don't get a conviction here, like a mission, I don't think they'll retry this case. I think they put everything towards the wall. I don't think they're retrying this case with how good of a job they did, how much money they spent, the millions of dollars they spent. I think the $350,000 they paid as a Hank Brennan, $350,000 to just one expert. I just don't think they're retrying this case if they don't get a conviction. I commend them for it.
It's a reminder about the resources, for sure, in doing another case. Want to let our viewers know that sidebar turned into the lunch break, so we are going to be waiting for the jury to come back from that lunch break with more live testimony. Let's talk about the defense case, because last year they started with a lay witness, the snowplow driver. They then got to the dog bite expert. There was a pathologist on the stand, a digital forensics guy, and then 2 reconstructionists, and that was it. It was a pretty quick case because so much had happened in the prosecution's case. We didn't see that this year. 38 witnesses versus 68 this time around. How robust do you think the defense is going to be? And are they going to call in all of those people inside of 34 Fairview?
You know what? That's a tough one. I don't know. I don't think they will. They could. They have them on the witness list. I don't think they will. I think that their defense is going to have to be longer than last year, because last year what happened was they kind of had a bigger case because of the cross-examination of the state witnesses, right? Because they grilled a lot of these people, Brian Higgins, Brian Alpert. They just really went to town on these people. In this case, they didn't have that ability. In this case, they're going to have to go on longer. I think they're going to have to put on no less than 14 witnesses. I think they're going to have to put on the same witnesses that you just listed from the prior trial, or some version of them, and they're going to have to go deep into the timeline of the cell phone and the aperture, because there was like a knife fight between Robert Alessi and Hank Brennan just on the Rule 14 motion, just on the admission of the timeline alone. That was a full day just knife fight in the courtroom, because Robert Alessi knew how important that evidence was to be kicked out, and he couldn't get it kicked out. So I think they're going to have to go on longer. I think they're going to have to bring on at least a couple more experts to break down the accident reconstruction demonstration. They seemed surprised and caught off guard by it, which caught me off guard. So I think that they're going to have at least one expert to break that down. I think they're going to have to bring in, they might bring in the dog bite expert. Will they bring in Brian Higgins, Brian Alpert, to your question? That's a tough one. I don't think the jury is going to buy that there was a conspiracy, and so they would be bringing them in to just show that there was a conspiracy. I think it might blow up in their faces. I mean, we had Jen McCabe on the stand for 3 days in total, so I don't know. But they are going to have to go on longer than the last trial, because of the fact that they didn't have an opportunity to bring in their opening statement. They made a promise that they're going to show you that Michael Proctor is a bad guy and he conspired with people to frame Karen Read. They made that promise in their opening statement. So if they don't bring in witnesses to prove any of that, what are they going to say in their closing statement? They will be completely uncredible at that point.
We're only on witness number 1, so we have a long way to go in the defense. You're right about the timeline. I mean, it is down to the millisecond almost when it comes to the differences and variances. A lot to take in, a lot for this jury. Michael Jaafar, stand by. Pros say defendants are tricky. The judge has to not only handle a trial, but has to teach as he is conducting things, and we're seeing that play out in this case. Those opening statements, once the jury does get seated, they are expected to start at the beginning of next week. Court TV will be there inside and outside of the courthouse to bring you all of the biggest moments from that trial. Let's bring in National Trial Attorney Michael Jaafar, see what he thinks about Lori Daybell representing herself yet again. And she even says, do I have to choose who will represent me? No one represents you, Lori. That was your choice.
I have PTSD with this question, Julia. So when I was a young attorney, I had a perfect trial record as a criminal defense attorney that didn't last long as a public defender, because I had a client who did not want to take my advice. He said, you know what, I want to take this. I got him a deal. It was an armed robbery. I got him a deal where he wouldn't even serve prison time. He said, I want to just take this to trial because I don't think that you charge me with this. Well, how do you think that? Well, because I'm not a professional criminal. Yeah, but there's a video of you actually committing the act. Yeah, but like, I don't do this for a living. And so I tried to withdraw from the case, and I got a talk down from the judge on the side saying, if you withdraw from this case, this person's going to represent himself. He's going to tie down my courtroom for 2 days, and I'll never forgive you for this. That was the end of me trying to withdraw from that case. It shows you that judges detest pro se defendants. They will give them no quarter. They detest it. It blocks the process. It's like a courtroom killer, right? And that was not a very well-known case. Nobody even knew about that case. This is a case on national television. This is Lori Daybell. So God knows what this judge feels in his mind. I think he's bursting with anger that she's defending herself, and he has decided, you know what? I'm not going to let this thing turn into a circus.
Well, he certainly kept a calm demeanor throughout that first trial, and here we are at a second trial. Your thoughts on doing another trial? I mean, this is Arizona. This is about a different family member who did, thankfully, survive, but it's important for justice, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's very important. I think it's necessary because we don't know what's going to happen with our other cases. And even if we do, even if we know she's going to spend the rest of her life in prison, the families need justice. They deserve justice. And so this is actually a very important part of the process. It happens all the time.
Michael Jaafar, thank you so much for all of your analysis. We have so many trials that we've been covering. You stay on top of all of them with us. We do have to slip in a break. But